Hi, this is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design, and I'm here in the studio with Beadaholique. I'm going to show you in this episode how to make a framed pendant using a wire framed, hammered wire, and cup chain embedded in crystal clay. What you're going to need for this video is a pair of flesh cutters for cutting our wire, hammer and bench block for pounding our wire frame and our wire. You'll need some 20 gauge artistic wire, some crystal clay, I've already mixed a small batch, and some cup chain, and the pre-made wire frames by Nunn Design. First, you're going to want to go ahead and unspool about a foot of the 20 gauge wire. And using your bench block and your hammer, you're going to want to go ahead and pound out a small amount, giving your wire a nice flat and textured look. One of the reasons why I slid like this is so that I can continue to have one side be flattened. Now you can see it's a nice texture and a flat piece of the wire. Then using your frame, your open frame, you're going to want to do the same. You're going to want to pound it flat. We're going to start on this end. You don't have to do this, but I like that hammered flat look. And as you notice, when I got closer to this section right here, I was just a little bit more gentle and it went a little bit slower as to not deform the piece. I still have a little bit that I can do right up here. You might need to have a pair of needle nose pliers to reform or straighten this section out after you've been hammering on it. Just use your needle nose pliers to bend it slightly back. So now I have my wire frame and I have my hammered bit of the wire. Next, we're going to cut small pieces of the hammered wire to make the pieces that you're seeing here, kind of that organic grass stem-like pieces. So using your flesh cutters, cut a variety of shape of lengths. You might want to go back in later and make adjustments to the lengths, but just to get started, cut off a couple of pieces. Some short and some longer. Oops, I think I ran out of my hammered section because this isn't as hammered. So we can make some of those shorter. Then with our cup chain, we're going to need just a couple of little pieces of this. So you're going to want to cut a couple of pieces of the cup chain as well. One. And you want to try to get that little retractable, can you see it? That little retractable little tongue that kind of sticks out. You want to trim that off as well. There's one piece, two pieces, and there's our third. And that's what we're going to need. 3 pieces of the cup chain and then a couple of the pieces of the hammered wire. Then we're going to take our framed pendant, the wire wrap frame pendant that we already hammered, and I'm going to place it on a piece of plastic like this because it's going to be a lot easier to pull it up and remove it once the crystal clay is hardened. So I've already mixed my crystal clay, which comes in a little package like this, and mixed the part A and part B together. And I'm going to just take off a small ball. I'm guesstimating how much I'm going to need for this frame pendant. If I need to add some, I can, and if I need to subtract some, I can. But go ahead and roll it into a nice round ball in your hands. I had a little piece of that metal on my hand when I was mixing, so go ahead and pick that off if you get any excess in there. And I'm just patting it down into a nice little round ball shape. Trying to keep the clay nice and even throughout. Then let's see how we did as far as how it's positioned. That's looking pretty close. If you have too much, you can always pinch off a small amount. And you might have to start over again if you had too much or too little. Or another thing that you can do is just press it right into the open framed area on your plastic and move it around that way. Sometimes it looks neat just to do a partial design, but we're going to go for the full effect all the way over to the edge. So I'm using my finger to push that clay into the places where I want it. Now I'm using my fingers to move it away from that side edge. So once you have your piece all the way into your clay, you can lift it up and just double check that it's attached all the way onto that wire frame. See the back side. I'm going to use a wet wipe to wipe off any of that excess clay that might have got on those side edges. The epoxy clay, you have 90 to 120 minutes to work with it before it starts to harden. So it's always a great idea to be cleaning up as you go. Keeps your work nice and tidy. Plus, when this stuff hardens, it's like cement, so it's best to just take care of it. And that includes removing it off of your fingers. Once you have your clay placed inside your frame, you're going to want to start to play with your design. Lay your flattened wire pieces into the clay and arrange them in the positions that you would like. And this is where you can start to be creative and make different lengths and try different designs. You're going to want to make sure that your clay or your pieces of metal are flushed down and into the clay fully so that they don't easily snag on something and lift up. This is the end that I'm most concerned about. I don't want it to get caught on anything, so you want to make sure that it's pressed down into the clay. Now we're ready to start taking a look at where we might want to, is that one of those little retractable things down inside of there? That looks good. So now you can go ahead and start to embed your little crystals of your cup chain into the pendant, like such. And you can just continue to add your hammered wire, maybe cut a couple of shorter blades inside here, and maybe you just have one, or you can add a couple more pieces of the crystal, and you just keep going until your design is just the way that you like. Your epoxy clay will take about 2 hours until it's fully cured and hard in a form that's like this. So once this is done, you're going to want to then just remove it from the plastic, and then you'll have a nice smooth back like this. This is Becky Nunn with Nunn Design, on location here at Beadaholique, showing you how to make a fun framed pendant with hammered wire, cup chain, and epoxy clay. Thanks for joining me.